Hi, this is Dr. Richard Abbey from Palo Alto, Abbey Neuropsychology Clinic. And today we're talking about autism assessments. When can you do them? Who does them? And how is this helpful? Well, the earlier the better, right? It's a good time to take a look. Or if you feel like your child is at risk, maybe due to advanced maternal age because there are some risk factors in your family, just because maybe you want a wellness check with their brain. So you can do checkups as early as 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, and onward. A lot of people start looking into this when there's a delay in language and they try to figure out what's happening. Maybe your child has seems a little bit disconnected socially by limited eye contact or interest in objects rather in things rather than people or peers. You know, as children grow older, this becomes more obvious. So, you know, when they're younger, there's a lot of parallel play. They're just playing next to each other, and you know, maybe they're both in the sandbox and things. You know, we start getting in preschool, kindergarten, and beyond. You know, the expectations are a bit higher. To the extent that, you know, maybe now we're second and third grade, and it really would be nice if you showed a little bit of interest in me, not just kind of talking about yourself and your own interests. Maybe your child has shown things like a narrow field of interest, like they're very interested in Legos, and lots of kids have that, but maybe it's kind of out of the ordinary where all they do is talk about Legos and people's eyes glass over, and they're still talking about Legos and they're not taking these kind of verbal cues or hints. So where to go? What do you do? So, you know, one of the things you can do, some people do this test called the ADOS. And ADOS is a good test because it kind of looks at the social communication in an age-appropriate manner, depending on the severity of symptoms. A lot of kids, when they're initially looked at, may be mild. Of course, you know, the more advanced in age, they have nodules all the way up to, you know, adulthood. So that's just one of the things, but we really should be taking a look at so many things, because I remember a parent told me, if you've seen one child with autism, then you've seen one child with autism. And so when I was at Stanford, we used to take a look at children and not only look at their social communication styles through the assessment, but I would also participate in looking at their intellectual abilities. And sometimes you would see, or actually quite frequently, you would see things like a relatively higher score in nonverbal intellectual abilities, relative weakness in verbal intellectual abilities. And some of the performance types of measures, like processing speed, might be a little bit slow in some aspects, or working memory might be a little bit slow or compromised. So the ability to hold information in mind and mentally manipulate it. Often what goes along in autism are difficulties with executive functions, similar to ADHD, but for different reasons. So they may be really good at reasoning within their narrow interests, but it's very difficult to kind of work around somebody else's expectations, or, you know, to write papers, for example, and stick within the assignment and generate all those ideas and be able to do that with ease and effortlessly. So some of the other things that you may see are, you know, some of these areas of weakness in language may extend themselves in reading or spelling or writing. And so you want to take a really good look at those things. Or visual processing, we can look and kind of trace the movement of the eyes while it's following, they're trying to track an object, or the teaming of their eyes. And so, you know, what does that look like? And is there a relative weakness there? Because if there is, that makes it even more difficult for them to pick up the subtle nuances that you see in social communication. And as we get older, that becomes increasingly more important. But one of the other things you can do is take a look at the activity of their brain. There's a lot of research in the cerebellum. Let's go to this hind area here. 80% of the neurons in your entire brain are housed in that nice tightly wound area called the cerebellum. A lot of people think, well, that's just movement refinement area, but actually it's not. There's a lot of refinement in terms of executive functions and language, so actually learning and memory, and also movement. So sometimes you'll see somebody with autism who is a little bit difficult for their gross motor movement. And maybe they struggle a little bit in sports or dancing or something like that. Maybe their handwriting and their fine motor movement isn't quite to par with some of their other really well-developed abilities. You can also see these narrow form of interest. So they may have hyperconnections, or they've overconnected certain parts of their brain at the expense of other parts, like maybe the socialization part, because they're